So we're going to actually jump on in. So we are, we're diving into episode 9. Emily Says Hello, another episode that does not look familiar, the title. So I don't think that I'm in this one.
Oh, but fanfic would make it so amazing if you were, and I'll talk about why.
Ooh, nice. All right. For those of you who have been here before, you know what we're doing. If you're new, get your remote ready, have that trigger thumb on the play button. We're going to all hit our play buttons on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
And it's fall again.
Have we ever seen Jackson wear a hat like this? I feel like we've always seen him in his usual beanie.
Definitely not in the hat like that.
Maybe he's wearing it so he could disguise himself from selecting business.
I'm sure that's what they were thinking.
Absolutely is what he's doing.
I mean, I can see Brenda saying, we're going to give you a different hat today, because, you're trying to stay undercover,
They countered a long opening with a small.
Really quick, just while we've got a second here, I'm just going to say, man, oh man, do I feel bad for Dean. That guy is constantly, I mean, he's just in the context of that relationship that he has been really wanting since the beginning of this series. It's just constant disappointment for that guy.
And he's the one who
mostly
always
his fault.
the relationship.
I can't feel bad.
I feel
for
like
him
he's
at this
insecure.
point,
He's the one who always ended the relationship.
Yeah, because of his insecurity, for sure. But I mean, it's like the relationship, he's ending it before it would end otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
How can you feel bad for him
Michael
when he cheated on
DeLuise
his
is
wife?
in this episode again. Yes.
Well, he's an escrow.
Wayne is in the episode, guys.
Discount John Mayer? Okay.
You better stop.
Did anybody feel like this when they were pregnant?
Not at all.
When I was pregnant, I used to
Yes.
always run with Tobin.
I mean, this is a trope we see a lot on television. How real is it? I mean, I don't think that was something that I noticed from Babsy.
Completely emotional like that? No, I wasn't.
I was.
I mean, emotional, but like it's usually done to like the extreme on television.
Yeah, I would cry at Hallmark commercials, guys. It was bad for me.
Aww.
There were times I think I would cry, but I was just mostly in.
I'm an emotional person anyways. Anything can make me stir up tears. Just I don't know, tears of joy or whatever. And I feel like pregnancy just amplifies that.
Yeah, no, I was totally.
But I was also 19.
Not exaggerated at all. Not even.
I'm just gonna take everybody's word for it. I'm dying, by the way, to see that house that Liz and TJ have.
I feel like my hubs had sympathy cravings. Did you have that?
With their mom, absolutely.
Where did
I
the
also
bear?
put on my own baby.
I've never noticed her herb garden by the window before. That's really pretty.
This is also a television trope, though, isn't it? Isn't this true? Like,
Not
just
necessarily. I've seen
bizarre
people
cravings.
want weird stuff.
Again, this was me. Except mine was pork and beans and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
My first
I didn't have
No, pork and
weird-
beans and peanut butter and jelly sandwich don't seem that weird because the beans and pork and beans are kind of sugary.
I didn't have crazy cravings, but I had cravings for tomatoes on everything, sweet or savory. Just tomatoes.
But there's nothing weird about that. Tomatoes are the greatest thing on it.
Oh, agreed.
I've seen the
Really?
pickles covered in chocolate thing. It's a
Ugh.
Mine was spinach and apple cider vinegar, like just a big value pack of like canned spinach, and I eat it all.
with my son, I craved chili. With my daughter, I craved pineapple.
Team Marty!
Marty from the party.
Oh my god, I love Discount John
Regina,
Mayer.
you better be quiet.
I love Discount John
Regina.
Mayer.
Regina.
Discount what?
Your body.
Discount John Mayer, because
Oh my
I
goodness.
thought the first
We'll have
time
to
I watched
explain the whole
series-
situation after.
Yeah. I thought the first time me ever watching the series, I thought Wayne Wilcox, the actor who portrays Marty, was John Mayer. And I said, oh my God, what is John Mayer doing here?
Thank
It's
you
true.
for that.
Lupoli and Saka.
And they really committed to that soda shop. I mean, it's there now. It's part of the story.
And all the pretty candy. I still find it strange that he said that the cord wouldn't reach outside, but it reached all the way into the storage.
I am amazed that Rory holds no ill will towards her parents for the line.
Same.
Because she likes that word.
And she had a pretty good time.
She liked all those attention from all those handsome guys.
I think she just accepts how they are and understands that they're not going to change. So she just accepts it and moves
Is that a Hillary Duff?
I don't know.
I never noticed that poster in her room.
Yeah, that's the one that teachers asked if it was Hillary.
No, the red one behind her.
Ah,
The plan.
Did you hear what she said? Rich people, they live very different lives.
Bring out the bop it.
there's your butt.
That was a funny line.
I love how he did like a little side scoop so that he could maintain distance while she was.
I worship you. I have one. He didn't say escargot.
Is that so wrong?
Scotty, peace coffee though is not.
I love that he loves crullers because I love crullers.
He loves crullers. Crullers.
Crullers are the best.
Gotta be made.
Totally agree.
I love it when they decorate for fall in this show.
Those orange lilies are my favorite.
Yeah, when the show starts to resemble the opening credits, it just hits its sweet spot.
And I love all those Tiffany lamps.
I was just wondering how many of those do they have, or do they just move the same one?
That's a different one. That one's a little bit more blue. There's a Tiffany museum in Jersey somewhere.
Because she should have one to her right, next to the computer.
Yeah, that one was more yellow.
All the lamps in my house are Tiffany lamps.
I love it.
Oh,
Bada boom.
Dun, dun.
Hello.
Ba-dum.
Love a good rum springer joke.
There's an awful lot of fruit in that picture in front of.
Unrelated, but I just found out today that the desk lamp I've always had is a Tiffany lamp. You learn something new every day.
So pretty.
Awkward.
It annoys me how he's so cold, like when he doesn't need something from her.
Yeah, Well, but is Rory he told trying? him to stay away. I think he's trying to respect his daughter's wishes during this scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Christopher finally understands what boundaries are, so.
He just wants to listen to his kid and not be on a bad side. John, did you know you lived in the hood?
That I live in the hood?
That she just said that Stars Hollow was a hood. They just keep it on the down.
Yep. And then boundaries were broken.
Yeah, boundaries
Yeah, he
broken
switched.
by Lorelai.
Right, because she didn't know about the deal.
Yeah,
Or
but I
you
mean,
just
but
messaged
I
me
also
that
just
he
think
finally
that, like,
understood.
She's not very respectful of boundaries.
yeah, in general, I feel like I'm feeling bad for Luke in the same way that I'm feeling bad for Dean. I have to be honest.
I could see that.
Yeah, I agree.
Totally.
Do people
just wondering who
still
keeps
store
batteries
batteries
in
Man,
in the fridge?
refrigerators that look like cupboards.
Yes, absolutely. People keep batteries in the fridge because it makes them.
Yep. I used to have a whole bunch in my fridge, but then I moved and and ended up with a smaller fridge.
And when you throw out batteries, you should be taping over one of the sides, either the positive. Oh, I never.
We have battery recycling center.
Yeah, you want to make sure they don't touch, because if they touch, they could start.
I feel like Emily and Richard would be the first to die in the apocalypse.
Emily and flexible are not two words I would have put in the same sentence.
And it's big hair again.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, has her hair always been this big? Like, I know it was in the last episode. Not this
It's
big.
massive. This is the biggest I've seen it.
It's wow. Wow.
It's her divorcee hair.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other night about, hair changes when there's sort of a life change.
Yeah, this is big though. This is a big change.
Love the
Did
flowers.
someone say earlier it's full of secrets?
And Lorelai's is too flat.
MoveOn.org. Jeez.
Now imagine Brian here.
I by the way, just recently mentioned that I think she's going to probably start dating somebody.
You did.
Yes, you did.
But did you know it was going to be Sean Gunn dressed as the Weasel from the Suicide Squad?
I did not. But I'm excited to see it.
Diggity dog.
Hello.
Isn't this the episode that Brian gets beheaded in?
No, not yet. That's
Oh,
at the
okay. I'm
end
like,
of the season.
oh, that's right.
He at least made it through this far.
That's right. I totally spaced. I'm off this season. Sorry.
By the way, Josie is with me right now, and she is fully into the show.
Adorable.
We don't blame her.
She has great taste. Wait, who?
My baby loves Puffin Rock.
Josie, my daughter, my 5.5
that's so
month old
cute.
daughter.
I wasn't really listening. I just heard someone likes to watch with me. And I was like, who?
I wonder how she feels about Lorelai and Christopher Chap.
Has she seen you on screen yet?
She hasn't.
Oh, you gotta bring her when you come on screen.
She and Bazzy just got back from the farmer's market, and then I'm holding her now.
She's learning how to fast talk.
Daddy's little girl.
The inn got their lunch back already?
Maybe on Saturdays.
Oy.
Is she doing exactly what Rory didn't want?
Fully 100%. This guy is the conflict.
Doll baby. I like how they go. Well, now it's a girl baby, but sometimes there's a doll baby there or something because it goes back and forth, and they're really clever with their angle of the high chair.
She really
because they can only have that little girl for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's all they can have her on set for.
She doesn't even look like she's there anymore.
Those shots where you see her for just a second, they were shot within 15 minutes and she was out the door.
Yeah, Rory doesn't even seem like she cares about her little sister.
Isn't that why they usually use twins and triplets and stuff? So
Exactly right. That's why. Then if you use twin, then you have a half hour.
Triplets, you have 45 minutes.
Quadruplets, you have an hour.
Going.
Quintuplets, an hour and 15 minutes.
We can do math. Yay.
Do you think the Octo mom has like had her kids do all of this?
Octomom makes a fortune.
If only they were identical, right?
No, in some of the shows they've used ones that aren't identical and you can tell and they still
I think that the Olsen twins, aren't they fraternal?
They're fraternal. So are the Sprouse twins. They're not identical either.
Rory's being kind of hard on him at this point. Wow. I forgot how hard she is.
She doesn't believe anything he says.
Man, he's not waltzing in.
Especially since she called him, not vice.
Rory doesn't know that.
I know, but I mean, poor guy is always being that people are always assuming that this guy is just basura, you know?
Trash. Oh no, he is. He is.
I feel like she has every right to share that. You know, he hasn't seen the inn yet. She has every right to show him that place.
Rory was pulling an Emily move though and trying to set boundaries for like what relationships Lorelai was going to have. It's kind of similar to like Emily and Richard saying that Dean wasn't good enough for her.
Their storylines always kind of parallel each other.
What if
Wow,
Rory's trying to
what a
protect?
weird way to be holding her, man. That's gonna definitely.
He had 15 minutes. He had to do it.
He had to do it quick. I mean, I'm just looking at that. I'm just thinking that's gonna hurt your arm after a second.
He's probably never held a baby before in his life.
In 59 seconds. Like it was like down to the wire.
Completely unreasonable of Rory, but she is correct. It is going to happen. We need it to happen. We need some.
Remember that she's been parentified her entire life.
But Lorelai's also got participation in it. She's the one that's pursuing that interaction and that relationship with.
This is a great conversation for post.
He didn't know.
He didn't tell him.
He didn't know.
Rory's absolutely right, though. And
Well, she's right in
But
that
she just
this is gonna be a problem, but I don't know if she's in the right.
But didn't Lorelai just lie to Rory by saying Luke didn't care because he didn't know, right?
This scene.
We know he's a jealous guy.
Especially when he's wearing somebody else's socks.
That's why I don't wear socks.
Poor Jackson's losing.
Isn't that just what you cut, like a ribbon in the?
Yeah.
I once did a ribbon cutting at a restaurant in Vienna where they did that every single day.
Just tell them. There we go. That was so clumsy, but great.
But she's at least not keeping it from him.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it is.
But she's
It's
only
good that
telling
she's
them after the fact because she feels guilty.
Of course, she is used to keeping things to herself so close to the.
She also made it sound
Very
like
true.
Rory was a part of.
Well,
Oi, oi, oi.
Rory
Oi, 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 oi,
Rory
oi,
wound
oi,
up
oi.
staying for lunch, but Christopher left.
Maybe she
This
should have
is you
invited
in
Luke
20
too.
years.
It's
said this is you in
who
20 years.
is this? Who do you think it is? You in 20 years is a great line. And her hair is not as big.
This is such Paris going on a date and Rory helping her with clothing vibe.
So true. It's so fun when she gets grappled up.
Look at that closet.
I want that closet.
That closet is probably the same
That-
size as
Yeah, that closet's the same size as some of the rooms in our house. Like,
The closet is
Like-
the same size of my house.
Yeah, my apartment could fit in that closet at least twice.
they look exactly the same. So much for asking for her opinion.
Black suit on a first date, that seems kind of like a funeral though, doesn't
Nothing beats a little black dress.
Town meeting. Town meeting.
it? A dress would be cute.
John, a woman is ill.
Did you see her in the back? She had a heart attack. Watch this. I love Scott. Sean.
Jackson could take Kirk.
Flex.
I don't like Miss Patty here.
There's the house. That pipe is already cut, dude. Only need to go around once.
Why is he cleaning the pipe?
You have to make sure that the pipe doesn't have anything on it, because when they are going to weld the or solder the joints together, nothing can be on it. It has to grip to it.
And it's TJ. I mean,
And my husband's a plumber. I know lots of little tips and tricks.
Ah, teacher.
He grabs the pipe.
Yup.
Yeah, no big deal.
Hey, we've seen this
it's
guy
so
before, right? He
funny.
was in an episode before, right?
Lyman, I don't think so.
Isn't that Greg Brady? Or he looks like him anyways.
No, not Barry Williams.
yeah, no, it's not him, but some of his facial expressions does look like Barry.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if it was Barry Williams?
I think I looked that up one time and I kind of forgot that whether it was or not.
Oh, I think that that's the actor from Succession, isn't it?
His name is Larry Pine.
Larry Pine. Is anybody watching Succession?
Yes. It's Sandy, I think.
It's Sandy from Succession.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Which, by the way, that's definitely a show I would watch on regardless.
He's also in Goth, House of Cards.
I call these the Luke and Lorelei strings.
What do you mean by that?
The music. This is specific to the two of them.
Yeah, it just feels very Luke and Lorelei.
Not like she was looking for your approval.
That's
but
what that's
but
exactly
it's
the
not.
look of like it could be fine. Like
Come on, he figured out why she told him the way she told.
I'm surprised that Paris is not used to fasting for Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Also, if you fasted all day, you wind up not actually being that hungry. Like you eat and then you hit a wall.
Yeah, one bite.
Yeah, you
and then
eat like a couple of bites and that's it.
How did this guy get into Yale?
although Rome by the B-52s is a great.
Yes, it is.
Maybe he's an engineer. Hey now.
And now he's all interested.
No, just, some people don't know about pop culture.
No, that all of a sudden she said I broke up with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden his eyes lit up.
He kind of looks a little like Elvis Costello in that picture.
Yeah, a little bit.
Discount John Mayer, I'm telling you.
Is that Super Mario behind them?
No, that's an album cover or something of a pretty well known. I can't remember what it is. Oh boy.
This man needs to sit back down. No, Christopher, don't ever call back again. Or leave us alone forever.
And he's only in he was not in an episode before.
Oh man.
Oh,
This is really sad. Oh
man.
Oh my goodness. That was a really good episode. Both of those episodes were really good.
Did you see her reaction coming though?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Was well.
That was
Season
really,
5 is
really,
so good.
really
I know,
good.
I
Oh
was
my.
just talking the other night and I said I have yet to encounter a dud this season on my rewatch. I forgot how good it
There
was.
were
All of
no.
season 5 is a banger.
Oh,
So far, there has not been a single Dudley in this entire season. Let me open up this couch, get some folks up here chatting with us. We've got lots to say, and we only have about 45 minutes. Come on up, everyone. Oh wow, we've got a lot of folks that want to join us.
It's so weird to like
A lot of
Hi,
folks who
guys.
want to join us.
So mad at Emily the last
Yeah.
episode and then like feel bad for her this episode. It's like what a switch so fast.
Yeah, wonderful.
I still can't forgive her.
Oh, come on, Sherry. You
No,
can dig deep into your heart, Sherry. Dig
I have
deep.
no heart.
I can feel bad for
We
her,
know you
but
have
she's
your
still like my
reasons.
lead.
But that would be
Emily is
spoilers.
curmudgeon-y.
My attitude is
You're
if
very
Rory
much
can
like
move
Luke.
on, I can.
I am.
Good point, Mary.
All right, let's focus. We've got 2 episodes to discuss. I want to start with just
Your
because I think
Huntsberger?
that I think there's more juice there. Let's talk about Huntsberger. Let's talk about like the dean of it all, and then this clearly new boyfriend that's coming in. The way that this episode was definitely set up to be. I mean, with that final moment of the two of them looking at each other, it was very clearly like a big message to your audience. Like, okay, now it's these two.
Other Huntsbergers, just him.
Just him, yeah, too bad. But they were there. There was another Huntsberger there. But, my prediction was really less about the Huntsbergers and more I wanted to see Logan there.
So I have a question, John.
Tell us why you didn't think he was nice.
Because he didn't need to stumble out there with all those guys. Like, he knew exactly what that situation was probably going to be, to stumble out there and sort of put another guy who's all by himself. He knows that the guy is going to be all by himself there. Is sort of forcing like Rory's hand a bit.
Okay, I thought you were talking about something else originally, like what he was saying to her at the end. Yes, I agree with that. It was a little.
Yeah, no, just like no. I mean, what he says to her in the end is fine, but like with the within the context of I just stumbled out here with all of my drunk guy friends to like literally gawk at the two of you and make that guy feel extremely uncomfortable. Yes, like Dean tends to sort of, I mean, he's an insecure guy. Like we know that about him. He tends to like sulk and go off. Of course, Logan doesn't know that about him, but it still doesn't matter. Like, it's not really his place to do that. But it's in Logan's nature to do that, which is not I don't think that that's a particularly good side of Logan. The end moment there, I think that works like, with the Logan that we've met, the Logan that we seem to like the most, who's like this sort of mentor character who has these like really insightful perspectives on living life to its fullest and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's good for Rory. But I mean, I feel really bad for Dean. I mean, this guy he's really been trying to be with Rory since the very beginning of this series, since the pilot episode of the series.
Love at first.
Yeah, and like he just can't do it. And Rory's come back into his life without him really even asking for it. And like, it's like, and then he kind of is led down that now his marriage is gone. And then once again, like, he thinks that maybe he has an opportunity here. And once again, somebody else popping in there. I just feel really bad for the guy. And
I don't feel bad for him at this point, though. After what he did with Lindsay, got married and he cheated on her.
I agree, Chris. Completely.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I get that he did that. I get that he did that was wrong of him, but it was both of them, him and Rory did that, right? And then like, and now
he completely lied to her.
Agreed.
Making it seem as if that the relationship was done and he was leaving. So
and he took the ring off already and everything.
Yeah, so
she really thought that it was over.
I think it was definitely more him than her.
And even
but do you think that he loved Lindsay more than he loved
I don't think he was in love with Lindsay.
No.
I think that he's in love. So I think that he was in love with Rory, and I think that like it's reasonable to assume that he would have at some point likely wanted to. I mean, I think that he would have wanted to be with Rory somehow. I think that relationship between him and Lindsay would have ended in some way, don't you?
No.
Like if Rory had come into the picture, wouldn't he have they have eventually broken up?
No, I think he would have. I think he would have stayed with her for at least for quite a while, because if he didn't have any chance with Rory, he wanted that
not as much, but he wanted the life of having a wife and everything. So honestly, I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
I
he
don't
would
know.
have.
Okay, so then taking that into account, right? Like if you just said if he didn't think he had any chance with Rory, he would have. Then that seems to suggest that if he did think he had a chance with Rory, then it would end. And that's exactly what happened. You know, whether it ended now or whether it would have ended a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever the case may be, there's no question, as long as Rory would have wanted to be there, he would have probably wanted to be with Rory. He would have probably been lying about it because he's got, you know, obviously some, you know, he's a coward. I mean, you know, is sort of the meat of it. But I think that, I mean, I just think that they're two different things. What he did there with Lindsay, which Rory was a part of that. I don't think that it's this. To me, it doesn't really change how I feel about what's happening to him now. It's sort of like I can't really say like, because he did what he did to Lindsay. Like I hope that he you know has misfortune. You know, I don't care about all of the heartache that he might have later in his life because he did that one thing, and that one thing has now like destroyed his character in my eyes. I just for me it's like I can separate the two and be kind of like I'm really bummed for Lindsay and really disappointed in him and disappointed in Rory. But now seeing that they are together, I'm like accepting the idea that they're together, that they could potentially have a long relationship together, which I know people who are together for a long time that their relationship began, you know, out of they were the other couple. I know people who started dating out of, I guess you could say, an affair, and are together like considerably longer than the original relationship. And I mean, I have to at some point people have to kind of love that, right? So I was on the train, I guess, for them, and I feel bad. I just feel bad for Dean.
I disagree with the
the
premise
only
that
real-
that Lindsay and Dean would have been together. I mean, it's nice to think that, you know, in a perfect world, rainbows, unicorns, stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of, you know, how he and Rory, you know, what they did exacerbate the situation, he and Lindsay were having issues before then. I mean, we even talked like within the past couple of weeks how, you know, they weren't happy. They were doing this. She was trying to make him happy. They were having issues. But just because we want to think it, I mean, I don't think that would have been a possibility.
Yeah,
because
wait,
the telltale signs-
Thank you so much.
Yeah, like
They never should have gotten married. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
And that's what
but
I find
100%.
disappointing.
Totally. But how many people here know folks who shouldn't have gotten married? They did get married, and you know, you still want happiness for them, like even if that means that they have to sort of like tear that Band-Aid off, you know, or like, you know, like they've got to go through a little bit of pain. I've known folks that like were not meant to be together, and I'm happy that they're no longer together. And in the series, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, he was already like showing up to work before he ever thought that him and Rory could potentially be together again. He was showing up to work like clearly with something going on in his marriage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
The
But
thing
the-
that really bothers me about Dean, more than anything, is that he's not willing to like enter Rory's world. He like is insecure about her being with rich and smart people, like hanging out with them, and he won't hang out with them as well. And I think that ends up being the catalyst for their breakup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with
I
agree with that. But can you blame him though? I mean, he like, you know, he's just not even from like remotely from that world.
I understand that point to an extent, but you never really see Rory inviting him into that world either. She seems to want
Right.
those two worlds to be separate.
Just like Lorelai.
I was gonna say like whether, like
Totally. And this is why I said it. It was the first time that it really hit me where I was like, Dean and Luke are very similar in this way, you know, like they are kind of not always getting everything from the other person.
But
you know?
to be fair to Rory, though, I feel like she doesn't even know where she fits within that world either. She's still kind of exploring it and getting to know it.
Yeah, I agree. And also, the only reason why Dean and Lindsay really broke up and got divorced was because Lindsay found the letter from Rory. If Lindsay hadn't found the letter from Rory, we've already discussed this, that Dean would have continued to stay married to Lindsay and still dated Rory on the side. So I don't know if it really would have changed anything.
Well, Emma, what Zach mentioned earlier was that, oh, so sorry. What Zach mentioned earlier is that we have talked about them having issues anyway. So it's kind of like they would have been in a relationship and then they would have broken up anyway, with Rory's involvement or not. They just weren't meant to be together.
100%. He was on the way out the door. He just, Rory was a catalyst, and an unfortunate, shitty way to do it, but pardon my language.
I agree with that, but I also think that Lindsay, she's not a stupid girl, and Dean didn't really do a great job at hiding his feelings for Rory.
Exactly.
So even if they wouldn't have broken up because they were having problems, they would have broken up eventually because Lindsay would have been like, I'm not going to take second place. I truly feel like that's how it would have ended. I feel like Lindsay would have eventually figured out that she is second place to Rory, and she would have gotten tired of it.
I have a question for the American fans. I'm always like, perhaps it's a cliche, but in Germany we always say Americans marry so much earlier than Germans do. So I always feel it's just too early to marry anyone. It doesn't matter if Dean marries Rory or Leslie or whatever. It's just too early. They are just out of teenager years. And if you marry at that age, you need to work on it, and you don't have help from others. It's really hard. So I can imagine if they would say, okay, we want to be married, we want to go to a counselor, we want to get help, they could get through it. But yeah, it's hard.
Well, sure, now, but 100 years ago, people were starting their lives at 14, 15, 16. It was a different world.
I think that in general, it depends, it depends on, in terms of the cliche that Germans assume of Americans. I think that largely, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it varies based on whether you're in a big city or a small town. I feel like in small towns, there is a younger threshold for marriage, and in big cities, it's a little bit higher.
I also
it's regional,
think that it's generational too.
Well, definitely that, yeah.
Yeah, we've heard, them saying that millennials are getting married later and later. And I think each generation gets married a little bit later. I got married very young, but even though things have worked out for us, we are not the rule. We are the exception. I would not recommend it to anybody else, and things in the beginning were very difficult, but luckily we've kind of grown together instead of growing apart. But I would not recommend it to people because I do know that it doesn't work usually for everybody. I've seen other people get married very young, and I'm like, why did you do that? It's not, the relationship you're in is not good.
I would just like to say that as a person, I was just going to say, as a person who went from a city in Iowa to more small town area Iowa, when I went to college, I went to a college where women literally were going there to get their MRS degree. They were going there to get married. And they did get married. Over 70% of the people who I graduated with got married. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And then 5 years later, most of them got divorced. So it's very hard to keep up with, young relationships and stuff like that, especially if you get pressured by your family to do it anyway. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we have discussed, time and time again that okay, this whole Dean and Lindsay relationship, like it could work. It feels like Lindsay's mom is more in control of it. Like Dean doesn't really want all this. Like Lindsay's just there trying to, you know, like help Dean, and she knows that Dean's kind of, you know, all of those factors. You know, that's why, you know, as a group, we've kind of felt like they probably would have broken up, you know, a little later, but they would have broken up, or they would have grown apart, like what Mandy said. Like she was happy that she grew together with her husband instead of grew apart, and they could have grown apart. Like it was a very high chance, because getting married so young is a really tough thing to do.
Well said. And can I just say, I love all your perspectives and discussions. Being able to come together and have this conversations is awesome. It's a great way to spend a Sunday. So,
can I also say, harvest those kernels, folks.
Thanks for reminding me.
This event ends in 15 minutes, and kernels just began.
I would have not harvested the last ones had you not said something. So thanks.
So like my nephews are in their late 20s, and they're all getting, like, there's 4 boys, and my sister that had those 4 boys, she got married at 18 or 17, 18 years old, but they were together since they were 17, because the first one was born in high school, and they're still together. They've been together 31 years, but the boys are curiously all having baby. Or 3 of them have had their first baby, but aren't married yet. But they've been with their girls for a long time, and I think that's how their friends are all doing that. So I don't know, is that a millennial trend? I think that's a little bit weird that they're all doing that. I don't know if they're copying off of each other or what.
That they're getting married?
That they're having babies and being with their girlfriends for a long time.
Oh yeah.
But not getting married.
I think that like marriage and having your first child or second child or fourth child, I think all of that is just a part of the sort of the life adventures that you put yourself on. And I think that, you know, for folks who have a lot of adventure in their life already, which happens, I'd say, you know, in different regions of the country because of just, you know, I think that it's probably the reason why certain people in big cities don't get married or have kids at a certain point because there's just like a variety of other adventures that are kind of consuming them, and they don't have a place to fit in that adventure. But I would also say that sometimes when your close friends are going on adventures, like, you kind of want to go on those same adventures, right? So it isn't odd, I think, that you see a whole group of friends all having children around the same time, you know, because they're all kind of wanting to experience the same thing that each other is experiencing. And when you have your friends suddenly going on this adventure that you don't have any relationship to, it can threaten the friendship.
Yeah, I will also say that children in general, like, for those who do get married young, if they decide to start families right away or get married because they are pregnant, it makes a young relationship significantly harder. Like, my husband and I chose to wait many, 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 many years before starting a family. But like my sister, she basically got married because she got pregnant. And our relationships are very, very different because of that. And there's different health aspects to both of our relationships. Like, not to disparage my sister, but my husband and I are we're more stable than her and her husband. And I think a lot of it has to do with the added stress of having kids so young.
Well, Mandy, in regards to what you said, and John, if I could ask a clarifying question. So you talked about marriages and generational things and different parts of the country. Can we even say then that many times marriage is even like a peer pressure thing based on the particular group?
Certainly, I think
that is true.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's for that reason, right? Like, because the people around you are sort of either they're doing it as what they're doing it and the pressure comes from, hey, we're all going on this adventure and you're our friend and we don't want to lose you, but we need, but we will, because there'll be all these things that you won't really be able to relate to. And so it's sort of an unspoken come with us. And also pressure from the previous generation that also will have this thing in common with you that they sort of, that they sort of need from you as well. But also it's, there's also just, societal pressure, right? Because then you get some of the things like what we're seeing in this episode with Emily and Richard, where if your culture kind of values that, there might be pressure from, sort of previous generations for you to sort of follow in the same footsteps that they did. But I think that peer pressure in that regard is almost always because they've done it and they want to be able to relate to you or you to relate to them a little bit better. So there's this kind of pressure to from you to want to be able to relate to your married friends, relate to your friends with children, for their children to have friends in their life that are, that are sort of mirroring the friendship that they have with you, right? That's something that I definitely see amongst my friends.
You know what's funny? This whole thing you're talking about, it actually happened in Grey's Anatomy with Christina Yang and Meredith Grey, and why they got into a big fight right before Christina Yang left, because Christina didn't want to have children, and Meredith had 2.
Interesting.
I'm not caught up on Grace.
I think that familial pressure is also a big thing. So I think that if Dean and Lindsay did continue their relationship, even though it wasn't working, it would have likely been so that they don't disappoint their families. I think that a lot of relationships, a lot of marriages, even if they're not working for the two parties involved, they'll stay in the relationship because they don't want to disappoint their families. And especially you see that with people who are married young, because a lot of their family and friends will tell them how bad of an idea it is. And so when things start not working, they don't want to be like, oh, you were right, we should get a divorce. Everybody was right about us, we shouldn't have gotten married. They would rather stay in the relationship to save face almost. And I think
I know that
Dean and
happened to
Lindsay
me.
would have done that.
I was 27 when I graduated from vet school, and my mom sat me down and had this serious conversation about how I was now an educated woman and now I had to go out and find somebody to marry because that was the expectation. That's what I had to do. And I found somebody and didn't really want to marry him on my wedding day. I was like, why am I doing this? And our relationship subsequently did not last very long. But there was huge pressure from my family that was the expectation. That's what I had to do. And I call Brad my husband now. We've been together since 2013. We're not formally married, but for all intents and purposes, we're married. And I don't really put a lot of value on having to go through that process again and having a piece of paper, because we're committed to each other. And I feel like that's becoming more of a movement, that people are together in meaningful relationships, but are not necessarily heading down the aisle.
For sure. I think
yes. In
that
Germany,
happens.
more and more people don't get married at all. I never heard someone say, I got pressured for my family to get married. And I think it's also interesting that I have no friends in my age who got divorced. They are married and married in the last probably 10 years, or they didn't get married at all. But I know so many Gilmore Girls friends in my age who got divorced once or even twice or 3 times. That's okay. That never happened to me with a friend in Germany. So I think it's a really, really big difference in our countries. That's interesting.
And I think marriage also isn't for everybody. People don't have to get married. They can stay in long-lasting relationships and never get married if that's not what they want,
100%. And marriage is a business. And
They have also found in societies, to build off of what Nikki was saying, that there's a direct correlation between the level of education and the marriage rates and the birth rates, and that they find that the more educated the societies are, or the subcultures are, then the lower the marriage and birth rates are, ironically enough.
Japan
And we don't
birth
have
rate.
kids either, by choice.
Can I chime in here for a minute?
Hey, sure.
Yeah, of course.
Hi. Okay. So I was married for 9.5 years. I went from one relationship to another. Almost immediately after my marriage, I found another relationship. And before I got into my marriage, I was in a relationship. And then I was a teenager and I was living at home before that. And I jumped from one circumstance to the other to make me feel comfortable. And then I just, when my marriage ended, when that second relationship ended and I came back to Ohio, there was something that clicked inside of me that said, no more. I'm not having a relationship anymore. I'm going to have a relationship with myself, and that's it. And I've had relationships, but I haven't had a relationship that would make me change my entire life again, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't do marriage again. I was 24, 25 when I got married. Yeah.
Well, I totally get that.
I love that we're having this conversation because it gives us more of an understanding of Dean, where he's coming from, and Rory, and why the relationship they're trying to have now wouldn't work. They're going in two completely different paths.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot to mention before we move on, some people are not able to get married right away either. Like for me, I have cerebral palsy, so I have a disability, and I know for a fact that when and if I get married, I get Social Security every month. And I know for a fact that if and when I get married, Social Security takes my benefits away because they expect my husband to pay for me. I've had many friends of mine deal with that. So that's another thing, is like some people can't get married right away either because of situations like that.
Wow.
So
That happens even with older adults too. People actually get divorced because of Social Security registrations, compensation, Medicare.
Yeah.
Couples have been married for 50 years are divorced now. It's sad.
That I mean, I'm sure, Claudia, that's also very interesting, because I know that the social safety nets between our two countries, the difference between those is vast.
It's so bad. Every time I hear Americans talk about healthcare and social security, I think like, oh my God, really? That sounds like, I don't know, the poorest country in Africa and not the USA. It's so shocking for me every time. I really feel like, oh my God, you should all live in Germany. It's so bad, really. Not everything is better, of course, but this is really better. But if I ask people about it, it's like, yeah, I don't want to pay for others to get help. And I think, okay, that's a problem. So, yeah.
So everyone just heard that Claudia basically offered to let us all live with her, right?
Yep.
Claudia, how many?
Yep, moreover.
Actually, you know, I work as a therapist, and all the talking here today sounds like, you know, a bit like talking.
A therapy session.
Yeah, it sounded, you know, it's a little bit of fun, but true, it sounded a little bit like group therapy, everyone sharing the story, and I thought like, okay, that's fun, but I like to talk about Gilmore Girls too, so.
Yeah, let's actually, let's shift our gears back over to, I was just about to do it, shift back over to Logan, and because we spent a lot of time there with Dean. So I'm going to kind of go back and say that, like, I wasn't super crazy about the way that Logan sort of behaved there at the end of that episode. I mean, yeah, I kind of thought that little remark there at the end was kind of, kind of cute, I guess, in the context. That moment where he sort of saves her from that guy is also kind of cute, but it also feels very much like they're setting this guy up to be this sort of superhero that like is saving her from everything, saving her from her relationship with Dean, saving her from this. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I like him. I mean, I like him. I'll say like he's growing on me in a way that I didn't expect back, during the Master and Commander days of the character. But
you mean like 2 days ago?
Yes.
I was just gonna say that.
I know.
But in
what
the
you said
context
at
of the time
end
span
was-
of the show, it's probably what, like a month?
Yeah, it's probably been quite a while.
I was gonna say, I
I'm
know what you
curious to
said at
hear
the
other
end of
people's
the-
thoughts on it. Like, how are they feeling about Logan right now? Are you guys are you all feeling like you like him? Are you feeling like, yes, that was a really cool, like really
I feel
cool?
like
he's a
Logan reminds and looks like to me a little boy.
I think the character
Little boy.
great. I don't.
Yeah, he looks like a little boy.
I don't remember thinking, "Ooh, she needs to hook up with him" when I first watched it, but I definitely thought he was a fun and breath of fresh air for her.
Yeah,
I
Sherry,
don't-
that's how I was too. I
Yeah,
didn't really
either.
Oh, sorry. I didn't really feel like he was like necessarily the ultimate boyfriend or anything for her. I just liked his character because he was so different than the other characters we'd met in Stars Hollow, because he was just from college and a little bit older and all that kind of stuff. But Logan's one of those characters that I feel like over time had grown on me more than anything.
Me too.
In different
It's
ways.
a while, but I
He's
did.
so
big
snobby.
girl.
I think what's really, I remember thinking this at the time too when I first watched it. We this whole show, we've been set up to see two worlds. We've been set up to see the Gilmore world where everything is sort of prim and proper and everything has a place and there are traditions and, you don't really stray from those things. And then we see Stars Hollow where things are very different, a little bit more relaxed, like there's different norms. And I think Lorelai and Rory have always sort of operated, well, there's this or there's that. And I think what Logan brings to the situation is, and all of his friends, is this kind of underbelly of that world where it's a lot more fun. And maybe she can exist in that world, but like be part of like this sort of rebellious crowd within it. And I think that's what we're left with at the end of the episode, is that like, you can be upset that your grandmother dressed you up and like, and be upset that your boyfriend from the other side of the tracks, doesn't want to be your boyfriend anymore because you're so different. But you can take comfort in the fact that there actually is a place for you. It's in this third place, which is it's not either one of those things. It's like sort of the seedy underbelly of like the Gilmore upper crust.
That also felt dangerous to me though, because we're seeing this group of kids who are obviously very privileged and wealthy, who kind of didn't really seem to take anything seriously. Like everything was just fun and a joke, and they're off doing all these big adventures and having these big, get-togethers. And it just seemed like when I saw this, Rory is going to be a part of this world that seems kind of frivolous and doesn't care about anything. So I was immediately worried that she was going to get sucked into this. And so like the last episode where we see Lorelai looking out the window at her fumbling out of this limo, immediately my mind went to, oh no, this is what Lorelai wanted her to avoid, falling into this kind of group.
Yeah, like
That's
I'm
exactly
like
it.
like I could see Rory getting arrested here pretty soon. Like I'm just imagining that Rory could potentially like something really bad could happen.
I was upset. I'm sorry. I was upset the first time when Jess went back,
And I have to say that the first time I saw Logan, I was like amazing. And yesterday you were talking about the series became much more funnier, and it's exactly what I felt when season 5 started. It became so much funnier, and I think the moment Rory got amazed by Logan, I think it was in the chapter of yesterday when they were talking about journalists, different journalists and stories. And maybe he appeared more like the savior, but I don't think it's a savior character. I think it's just a fun character, and it's true that maybe it's all the time fun, but he's 20 years old. I mean, it's normal that they are at the uni and they have fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
He brings out the fun side of her, which is fun to see because we don't get to see that much. Like we get to see the more fun and carefree side of her.
But is that the side of her that is because when people talk about how much they love Rory, it's not typically the fun side of Rory that I've been, at least up until now, hearing about what's like so amazing about Rory. It's always been like, that she's so smart, she's so academic, she's the best in her class, and that like this sort of throwing caution to the wind and potentially I don't know, like vandalizing something, breaking into places, that this is not necessarily what we love about Rory.
My daughter is, I'm living the dream. I'm watching this show with my teenage daughter. She's not liked Rory from the beginning. And so she's been screaming at everybody right now on the call, by the way. But when we meet Logan and she sees him, her first thought was, okay, now we're going to really see who Rory really is, because she doesn't like Rory. She thinks she's selfish and has been a good girl because of the environment she's been in and how she's been brought up in this small town. And she said she's going to be with this guy and go off to the big city and be hanging out with people. And she's like, she's going to get in trouble and we're going to see exactly who Rory is now. So she wanted me to say that.
That is really interesting. And of course, who she is now might be a reflection on who she may become as an adult, which of course has me thinking about where she may land in a year in the life.
I forget who said it the other day, but somebody was talking about how she's been way too sheltered because, Lorelai has sheltered her her whole life. And I agree, Rory is very sheltered because of Lorelai and the way that she grew up. And I think Logan really brings her out of her shell. And I like that. Aspect of his character. But yeah, and also I don't remember. I mean, I was so young when I first watched the show. I don't remember what I first thought. I mean, honestly, I obviously thought he was cute. We all know that I think he's cute. But I think what I agree that I didn't think that they should be together right away. But I liked him, and I thought that he was a breath of fresh air, like Sherry said.
So Kathy Ann just sent me a message here on the back channel on Clubhouse. She can't get on the mic right now just because she has wild kids, she says. So I want to read what she sent me. So she says, I think he followed her out because he wanted to see why Emily and Richard set up this party if she already had a boyfriend. I don't feel at this point with this scene he is meant to be with her, but he would be a good friend who would check in on her and make sure she is okay. Like when he saw her stuck with the other guy, but he's also not scared to tell her things like the review of her article that Dean failed to give her. He saw her hurt when Dean decided once again that he was going to break up with her this time for something out of her control. She didn't know it would be a party of Yale males, and she definitely didn't mean to be late meeting him, but she also wasn't extremely late getting out. Yes, she was having fun in there, but in reality to her, she was making the best of a bad situation. So that is what she sent me.
I completely agree, Carrie Ann. Kathy Ann, thank you for saying all of the thoughts that I've been thinking but couldn't actually articulate properly. Thank you.
And he broke up with her in public again.
Yes.
Can I make
I mean, I know, but I
They're
know,
like
but
his favorite thing to like
I
humiliate him.
I'm not completely on that.
Yeah, can I
thing.
make it?
I
a
feel like
counterpoint?
I feel like, yeah, I just wanted to say I think that it was pretty telling when, you know, Logan, when she says her boyfriend's out there and Logan's like, you have a boyfriend. Logan is interested in her. It's so clear. And you know, I mean, this idea that he's like just being a good friend is I'm not I'm not buying.
Me neither.
Yeah.
To be
Okay,
fair, the
so
way Dean breaks up with her isn't because she was at a party with a whole bunch of males. It's he looks at her in that environment and realizes he doesn't fit in her life anymore.
Correct.
Exactly.
Like he
And
says,
looks,
what
like,
am I
so
doing?
Small and childlike in that moment.
Yeah, he says, I don't belong here.
He said he starts by saying, what am I doing here? You know, and he doesn't mean what am I doing here in this location? Like I read that as like, what am I doing here in this world? Like I don't belong in your world.
That's
So
I mean, yeah.
And
like,
Rory said
I don't
nothing.
belong
She
here.
said, I think if my boyfriend, I would laugh a lot, break up with me, I wouldn't just stand still and say nothing. She just looks at him. I sometimes feel it was a test of Dean, like to see if she says, of course we're together, I love you, like, you know that
Thank
I love
you.
you.
Yeah, or say,
he
let me
didn't.
introduce. Yeah, or let me
It was
introduce you to
and
these people.
Logan, sorry, just let me finish. and Logan, I think he wanted to like have a glimpse at the boyfriend, if he really is a serious boyfriend or just like a short time thing. And that's what he did. He stand back, had a look, and he saw, okay, it's not really serious. So it was like, I feel it's a check-in from both boys to see what's going on in Rory's life and what's happening afterwards. So that's my point.
Yeah, but
Logan has no
I
right
think
to do that.
But I think that Logan could have chosen a much better way of checking out the boy than he did. That I think that the way that he did it was extremely intrusive, and there was no way that a bunch of guys standing around there with alcohol in their hands, smiling, leaning into one another, watching this one guy standing at his truck was going to do anything more than make that guy extremely uncomfortable. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure from the perspective that Logan got, he would be like, oh yeah, this is nothing here. But, you know, in Dean's defense, Dean has been reduced to pretty much nothing in that moment. So of course he would look like nothing to Logan. But I will
in a
say,
safe relationship, you wouldn't care. I think if I would be safe, I wouldn't care if 100 women would look at my man. I would be so sure. And that's like, I think the thing. If Logan has a glimpse, and I think if he had seen her going to Dean, kissing him, they would have just gone back inside. So
I know, but he could have seen. I think that he could have done that in a variety of other ways. He could have
Let's
watched out
keep
the
in mind,
window.
Rory didn't tell them not to come watch. Rory knew they were all going out there. She didn't say no, don't, or anything like that. She didn't try to stop them. She let them all.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get. I get.
Actually,
And
wanting
I think
to
she
introduce the people she sees all the time.
I would say that the best argument there is the fact that Rory didn't turn around and say, Dean, let me introduce you to these guys. We're, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, that she didn't really try her hardest to bring him into this. Absolutely. But
I
no
think
way.
she knew it was over.
But there's just no way that I can say that what Logan did there was just innocent. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that was clearly a you know, a playing of a certain, you know, certain cards that Logan was playing there. And it was largely because he was interested in Rory. And it's true, had there been a really strong relationship between him, or not, I wouldn't even say a strong relationship, a stronger guy, because, you know, regardless of the relationship, we're also talking about a personality here, right? Like, Dean is a very insecure person in general. Like, I don't know if that would change in any situation. I think that no matter how strong their relationship would be, I think that Dean would always be a little uncomfortable in a situation that he's in. And I think Logan doing that in a way, I think is just a little disrespectful of of anybody's relationship, you know, regardless of, I mean, he doesn't know if it's a strong relationship or a, you know, a weak relationship. I think that just going out there and doing that with his friends, to me, it just feels intrusive.
Yeah, okay, so I think that Logan's a very smart person. And I don't think he does things without thinking about it. So I do believe 100% that he knew that there are very few ways his actions could have been perceived that night. And he accomplished, I believe, what he intended, even if he didn't necessarily intend to break them up in that moment. He wanted to use that moment to basically intimidate. Like, anytime he's on screen, from the first time that he was introduced, he tends to use his power to intimidate those around him. He did it with the conversation with Marty, even though there's debate about that. But I believe that he was purposely trying to embarrass and intimidate Marty. He did the same thing during the debate he had with Rory. And he's very, very charming, but I also find him to be very calculating. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he wasn't going out there to meet her boyfriend as a friend. He was going out there to intimidate her boyfriend. That's what I believe 100%.
I think that this
Yeah,
word
but I agree
intimidate,
with
I
what
think
Claudia said, that that had Rory put like a strong foot forward and like showed that, no, like, Dean, this is my man, he's my guy, he would have backed down. But I think as soon as Dean said, like, what am I doing here? I think he just verbalized what Rory was already thinking. She already knew that they were moving in different circles and moving apart, and that it was over.
Yeah, I think that this word intimidate, which I just, that word just didn't come to me, and thank you, Mandy. I think that that's hits the nail on the head. I mean, that character likes to intimidate. He likes to try to intimidate. He might not intimidate somebody who's really strong, but at least he seems to be trying in every place. And I think that the reason why I feel like no matter what, it's inappropriate. Like, I'm just thinking about if I was in Dean's situation, right? Like, you know, I'm in a relationship that is extremely, I mean, I believe is really strong, right? A person like Logan doing something like that around me wouldn't necessarily shake me the way that it shook Dean in my relationship, but I would still find it intrusive. I would still find that the fact that that the person's even trying to be sort of a sort of crossing a boundary that's not right.
But see, John, you just mentioned like what I was gonna ask, right? Like, why would Logan need to go out there and quote unquote intimidate anyone, right? If Dean and Rory believed that relationship was as rock solid, you know, going into it, then like it wouldn't matter. So like
it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter, but it would still be intimidation. Like, it would still be the attempt to intimidate, which is the part that I don't like, right? Like, he might have come out there, tried to intimidate, and Dean could have been like, you don't bother me, man. Like, you know, and it would have still made Logan's attempt at intimidation lame. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, like he may not have had like, if the relationship was stronger, he may not have had as much of an effect, but that's not really Logan's place to decide that. Like, it was unfair of him to decide to view somebody else who he barely knows, by the way, their relationship, and test it to see if it's strong enough to withstand a bunch of drunken guys following her out of the party. That's not his place. So even if their relationship was strong, it's still not his place to test it like that.
And we, just to expound on what John said with Dean too, like you said, it is not his place to test that relationship. We just said, was it yesterday? Wow, it was yesterday. That they felt like all these eyes were on the relationship, trying to see, what happened. So they have this pressure on their relationship already because of what happened in their past. And literally all of these eyes are coming out of this party looking at the two of them now. That has to be awful for him to have all these people looking at them to try to see how they react to everyone, staring at him. So, and Dean in that moment, like he said, what am I doing here? It's not just, what am I doing here? But he gave up his marriage for this, for her to bring all these people out to look at them and test them. That had to feel awful.
Yeah.
I
Hey.
have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question for the room. Do you think that if Logan and the guys would have stayed inside and things would have ended differently? I mean, with Rory all dressed up and with a tiara and all tipsy and late, do you think that Dean would have reacted different?
It might have just dragged out
I think he
longer.
would have been amused. I think he would have asked her what's going on. He would have been amused. He would have wanted to know the story. I don't think he would have reacted as bad.
I think it just would have
Definitely.
dragged their relationship on longer, but I think ultimately at this point, their relationship was already on the way out.
Yeah, I
I just
agree
feel
with
like the
that.
last
I
couple
agree with
times with
that.
Rory, she was not interested in being there, and his conversations with her weren't like what she was hoping for or expecting and things like that. I think she realized that really she probably shouldn't be with him, but she was still trying to work it out for some reason, maybe because she was afraid to let go of her past. But
Yeah, I think that their relationship was doomed to fail at some point anyway. I don't know if it would have happened that night. But did anybody else notice that all of the jewels that she was uncomfortable with her grandmother putting on her at the beginning of the evening, when she got out of the limo, she was still wearing those jewels. She never returned them, which to me symbolizes her acceptance into this world. Even more so than the limo did, because she's physically taking something from that world, something that at the beginning of the evening she was kind of uncomfortable wearing, and she's taking that into her Stars Hollow world now.
I don't think she was
Lily and
uncomfortable
Carl.
wearing them. I think she just wondered why her grandmother wanted her to wear such fancy jewelry. And she hadn't quite put together that the party was for finding her a new boyfriend kind of thing. Because if she was truly uncomfortable wearing them, I don't think she would have worn them. I think Rory. I don't think Rory was uncomfortable with the jewels. I think she was more, why do you want me to wear these? Are you sure you want me to wear these around? I don't think she was so much uncomfortable with actually wearing them. I think she just was confused as to why Emily was dressing her up so much.
Lily's flash.
Yeah. I would like to say that I think that this is a point of a plot change in the whole season, because I don't think that Logan was trying to intimidate. I think that the image was going to be Dean, that represents Star Hollow and all the Rory of the past. And then what is gonna be the present, because Rory was supposed to be uncomfortable at this party, and she was having really fun. And on the other side, it's not just Logan intimidating. It's a group of the new part of Rory's life. And I think, of course, if she was going out with a pair of jeans alone, of course, Dean would have acted totally different. But I think that the moment is so representative, and it's not just like how it's going to feel Dean. It's just a change in the season and a change in Rory's life direction.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
a couple of thoughts about a few things you were saying. I've kind of just been taking a lot of the information that we've been talking about, and one of the things was how Logan is trying to intimidate Dean or something, which I think is kind of a weird notion, because for all Logan knows, Logan does not know where she's from, presumably, because we haven't seen a conversation. They've only been seen together a couple of times so far in the season.
So he doesn't know where she's from. She doesn't really know like that she doesn't come from this kind of life. So him trying to intimidate someone who's on his same level, because that's who he could probably assume she's with, wouldn't really make sense. Him trying to intimidate someone that she's dating would sort of insinuate that he knows that he's from Stars Hollow, which doesn't seem like he would know that. And also, like, I thought like when Rory was like, well, actually I have a boyfriend, and everyone sort of like backed off because they were all like trying to joke and like, who are you gonna take home kind of thing, or to your grandparents, and everyone backed off. But Logan was like really interested, but I don't think he was like trying to like I don't think he was trying to portray that he was interested. He was just like really curious, right? Because he doesn't know this girl. And when Dean broke up with her, I thought he was like really respectful too, because I don't know. I don't think he was trying to intimidate Dean. I think he was actually just genuinely curious, because I think Rory is completely different from anyone he has ever like met or hung out with or interacted with. And so him trying to see who she's dating was more of like a deeper dive into her, more than like I wanted to like see this dude kind of thing.
Like
In
a
my
curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like
Rory might be the
this
first girl that doesn't fawn over him and try to get him to go take her to lunch all the time. Girl.
yeah, like the thing is that this scene that happened was just kind of the catalyst of everything that was building up to it. Ever since the season 4 finale, people have told Dee, you do not belong here. Either it be, Rory's mom, or Luke, or just, the judgment of the town, so on and so forth. And then this final moment with, I have to go to this thing with my grandparents and da-da-da. And I mean, he was out there for about 15 minutes or something. We don't know if Dean knocked on the door and tried to, connect with Rory or something like that. We don't know if Emily and Richard talked to Dean beforehand or something like that. We don't know any of that stuff. But I'm sure that the guys coming out, and then Rory coming out with all of that fancy garb and all of this nice stuff, it's a sign, like it shows, okay, you don't belong here. He knew that. I feel like that was more of a realization than anything else. He knew that he doesn't belong there. Even the fact that she asked him, oh, what do you think about my article? And he was like, I liked it. He's a consumer, she's a producer. Like this, they don't connect that well when it comes to things like writing and stuff like that. It really was a realization for Dean. I don't belong here anymore, do I? And Rory said nothing. Rory's passivity was enough. It's literally, I feel like this is season 3 all over again. I've mentioned this before. It just feels like the same relationship all over again. And Dean's like, all right, I'm out. Like,
She said
he had a
more in her
realization.
silence than she would have if she'd actually said something.
Yes,
He's like working on a maturity.
100%.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject here. I've been seeing Aaron flashing for quite some time. I'm going to be leaving here pretty soon, so I'd love to hear your thoughts here, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. And I walked away for just a second, so you guys might have already talked about this, but does anybody feel like Logan is just being Logan? Like, this is just what he does? Like, yeah, he's interested in Rory, but he's just used to doing whatever he wants. And I don't say that in like a super selfish kind of way, but I don't
that is
really...
selfish.
Yes.
I mean, that is the very definition of selfish.
Yeah, not in a mean-spirited kind of way, but like he's not really thinking about the people around him. He's just having fun.
I really love Mandy's way of putting it. I think that guy gets a kick out of intimidating people. I don't think it's in a mean-spirited way. I mean, I just think that that's sort of in his nature. He does that. I don't think it's appropriate in all situations, but he doesn't care, because I think he sort of comes from this like privileged world where he gets to do what he wants to do. And as long as he feels like he's not hurting anyone, in a sort of irreparable way, I think that he sees it as okay. I don't see it as okay. And you know, that's probably just like a big vast ocean between, you know, my point of my worldview and his worldview. But I don't really see it as like, I don't want to be misunderstood to say that I think that Logan is like a real like heartless person, evil person, you know, not at all. I see him as a fun guy. I'm recognizing that. I just think that, you know, that desire to kind of want to intimidate people, to push people's buttons, so to speak, right? Like I already mentioned to you, I don't really like horror films because I don't like people pushing my buttons, you know. And that's a guy who likes to push people's buttons, and he does it out of fun, but I think in certain situations it's not his place.
John,
and I don't think
So
it's his
here's a
place.
thought. If you think that he does this intimidation thing as like a thrill for fun, could you extrapolate that that's because he's come from a very privileged world where he can get anything and everything? So, you know, like buying things aren't a thrill because he's always had whatever he wants. And so when you're in those really privileged situations, you have to look for different outlets to get thrills.
Definitely. I mean, that
good,
seems like
Nikki.
exactly that seems like the whole spirit of this like life and death brigade. Like it's a bunch of rich kids who are looking for thrill because their worlds are so full of the things that would thrill most normal people.
Exactly.
Can we
maybe
talk a
Logan-
little bit about Emily and Richard? Because I feel a lot of the talking about Logan, you don't know that, John, but we heard it all on Facebook like 1,000 times. But we rarely talk about like Emily and Richard in this episode because it's so heartbreaking to see how their relationship is like going separate way.
I
It breaks
agree.
my heart, and I really would love to talk about that a little.
Let's take, because I'm going to stick around for another 10 minutes and so that we can dedicate some time to that. I agree with you, Claudia, that was a big miss on our part, because that is probably one of the most awesome things about this episode. Not awesome, just like in terms of just narratively, like that whole ending there with Emily was just absolutely heartbreaking, crushing. I did not see that coming. I did see her dating somebody, you know, but I just didn't see that was how it was going to affect her. And it was really, really heartbreaking. So Claudia, why don't we start with you? I'm sure you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. I think it's like we learned a lot in the show that Emily's world is basically getting married and doing everything for your husband. And now she's starting to think, oh, I'm living my life without a husband, so I need to get a new one. And I think that's so deep in her. And I get why she's acting with Rory like this, because that's her life. Her whole life is finding a good husband, getting a good life, and now finding a new husband and realizing, oh my God, Richard was really great. He was not flawless like in every wedding, but he was really great. And now I'm losing it. And I think the end, it was such a good moment in the whole show. Emily breaking down. I love her so much because that's a moment where we see how vulnerable she is. We always think she's strong all the time, but she isn't.
Yeah, might have been my favorite Emily moment in the entire series, for sure. It was really awesome and really, you know, I mean, you know, I love seeing vulnerability, particularly in my really like hard characters. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about this idea that finding a new husband might even be somewhere in her mind, you know, like I had just sort of imagined it as like, you know, she's going on a date and she's sort of struggling with the idea of you know, dating and getting to know people. But it's true, it's like if all she's ever really known is like, you know, is like get married and be a wife and do all of that, like dating somebody new, she would have to be thinking about what's my future with this person. And, you know, and that would have to be somehow playing into her mind. That may contribute to her breaking down because perhaps she's having a hard time even processing how that would even work.
This is sort of why I said in the episode, you got to really think about Emily in like piecemeal, because of how upset we were with her and how irritating she was in the first episode. But then our heart breaks for her in the second episode. And Emily is so I can't get the word out.
It's okay, you got that.
Compartmentalized.
Yeah, she compartmentalized it. Yeah, she herself is a compartmentalized human. And she compartmentalizes.
Exactly. Because she's so compartmentalized, even her actions can't be judged in this overall.
Another thing that breaks my heart is that she is in this situation. Well, that's not the only reason, but the main reason she is in this situation is because she stood up to Richard while trying to protect her newfound relationship with Lorelai during the whole Jason situation. And the fact that Lorelai doesn't even know that, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, that was hard.
Give a little bit wider reasons for that, because I don't think it was just that. I think this was building up from the whole Penelon Lot issue to not feeling like she's appreciated when, you know, Jason rolls over all of her party ideas and Richard just goes with it. Like, I think it built up way before the Lorelai issue, and the Lorelai issue may have been what broke the camel's back.
100%.
Do we think any part of Emily's crying is due to the fact that she's thinking about, because she just went and had dinner with a man, that she was thinking about what it was like for Richard and Penelon to just have dinner together or lunch?
Ooh. I had not thought about that. That's very interesting.
Like, I just had a really good time with this man and everything was wonderful. And then she comes home and, of course, instantly wants, maybe we think, you know, wants Richard back, but she also could be thinking, like, Richard did this once a month, once a year, every year for the however many years, and went out and enjoyed his time with another woman. And here I am feeling guilty about it or whatever.
I never thought about that. That's a really good perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how she would be processing that. But I mean, it seems to make some sense that at least, you know, that might cross her mind, or that might be somewhere deep inside her, this idea that, like, I'm dating, you know, a lot of this began with my discovering that Richard was seeing, you know, this old relationship from his past, and you know, my feelings about this guy Simon mixed with, you know, what I wonder he was feeling. I mean, that has to be somewhere deep inside of her, you know, and I could see it manifesting in this moment. I don't know if it's like completely what, you know, if it's all of what's happening to her there. I mean, I think that if anything, she's just overwhelmed with a lot of different emotions about what has just happened, what it means for her future, what it means for her and Richard, what it could potentially say about Richard and Penelon lots times together. I mean, I just think it's all these things, you know, hitting her all at once. And of course, that would be a lot. That would probably take her down right there, you know?
I believe that she wasn't thinking any of that. I think she was thinking, I miss my husband. I miss being my husband's wife, and I don't want to do this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean,
Speaking of
I could see that as well. I mean, it could be just as simple as that, just as simple as I want it to be the way it was.
Yeah.
And speaking of Richard, how's he going to react when, or if he hears about her dating?
Well, you all know the answer to that. You all know the answer to that.
But I want to know
what I think he, well, I'm going to say what I hope. I don't really know for sure. I feel that part's a little hazy. I hope he gets jealous.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second, so I'm not sure if somebody said this, but I feel like her wanting to date was like a self-protection thing, like because she thought that Richard had moved on. And so it's kind of like self-protection / trying to keep up appearances. And I think like trying to let on that she's stronger than what she is.
Definitely, but she's crying because she's heartbroken because she ultimately does love Richard and doesn't want anything to end. But she kind of feels like she's got to kind of move on and progress in life.
Yeah, this storyline has gotten a lot better. A lot better since it began last season.
My daughter wanted to, she's scared to talk, but she said someone mentioned earlier the scene with Emily getting ready reminded them of Paris getting ready for her date. And my daughter calls Paris Mini Emily because they're so alike in what they think and how they handle money and everything. So she just wanted to get to see it.
Emily.
And speaking of Paris, it would be totally Paris and Emily style that they take on something, they make themselves and everyone else around them miserable because of their one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We didn't get a chance to really dive into Luke and Lorelai and Christopher, which was also another really big part of this episode. My guess is that's going to be growing over the course of the rest of this season because, as I've said before, that relationship needs what?
Conflict.
It needs some conflict. I'm looking forward to it. I have to be honest. I'm looking forward to more Christopher. Just for no other reason than
John, you can go. John, you can go. Have a nice day.
Someone keep John on the couch on the bottom. Can I just say one thing about that lunch?
Yeah.
I thought Anne took that lunch away during the Norma Mailer "I'm Pregnant" episode, and now they're having lunch, and there was a waiter waiting on them. I thought they weren't supposed to be serving lunch at the Dragonfly anymore.
Maybe they started making more money and it was cool.
Or
Maybe
it could have been a
gave it back
week
to
empty.
Suki because she's pregnant.
Hey, John, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you and Babsy going to be watching Annie with us tonight?
I don't know. I have to check in and just see if there's something else that we're doing. I sort of right now I'm like kind of, at least on these weekend nights, I've sort of given that to Babsy to sort of plan. But I will let you know. One thing that I will say very quickly, and Claudia, you'll probably be happy to hear this. We completely found a Remarcus in the wild yesterday. Nick Holmes was super into this whole thing. Tweeted me or sent me a text message afterwards thanking me for inviting him in and how much he loved it. So I imagine we will see Nick more.
We love him.
Also,
Yeah, I think they made a Friday the 13th event to watch a movie with him.
He also stayed for the after event, and I have that recording, and I will be putting it up as well.
Wonderful.
Yes, love it, John.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like,
So just to remind everyone, we have an event, our event tomorrow does have a couch reservation wall. So if you would like to be considered for the couch tomorrow, you do need kernels. You'll need 20 kernels, 30 kernels if you want to get on for the watch, and 20 if you want to get on for the post show, 50 obviously if you want to try for both. This is my test number 2 of the reservation system, so it does really help me see what things need to be adjusted. I would love to have this reservation in place so that I can test the reservation system with one of our special guests, either Suzanne, who will be here this week for the Come Home episode, the Korean New Year's, and or our big weekend coming up. And by testing with a special guest, I mean charging you 150,000 kernels.
Absolutely not.
Huh? We need to set a maximum.
We are?
There needs to be a maximum.
Oh yeah, speaking of kernels, before you go, why is it so low? I keep getting these kernels and harvesting. We down to 8. What the heck?
So the way that the algorithm works is that there are two things that are affecting. I mean, you know, your kernels are always going to be slightly random, but within a pretty set range. So it's not going to. People's kernels are going to be all relatively the same for the episode within, like, between 5 and 10 kernel difference. Well, no, that's actually not between. I'd say between a 10% difference, 5 to 10% difference between one another. And so that's the first part of it. The second is, the more users sign up for the app, the more people start playing this game, the less kernels everyone gets, right? So the bigger our community gets, the more the kernel faucet starts to close a little bit, right? That obviously favors early adopters, and as we grow, it means that that the amount of kernels that are flowing into the system doesn't just suddenly just become so massive that we just have more kernels than mean anything. The other part of the equation, which I mentioned briefly, but I don't know if how many of you heard it, which is that kernel harvests are split amongst the events that day. So that means the more events there are in a day, the less kernels each one of those events gets, because they're all sort of sharing it. So and that's not exactly, they're not sharing it down the middle. It's like if there are 2, they each are about 60%, not 50%, right? So it's not like a straight splitting it. It still benefits you to do both of them, right? To harvest from both of them, because you'll be getting more kernels than if there had been only one that day. And of course, the more there are, the smaller that becomes. And yet, if you were to harvest from 10 of them, 10 events that are in a day, you'd make considerably more kernels than if there was only one that day, right? If that makes sense, right?
Have you decided what you're gonna call?
But the algorithm does
for the couch versus RSVPing for the event, if you know what I mean.
Say that again.
Have you decided how you're going to distinguish what you call RSVPing?
Not yet. Not yet. I haven't figured that out yet. But just so you know, on days when you're like, wow, that was yesterday I got 50 or I got 30 kernels, and today I got only 7. It's likely because there were a lot of events that day. And I would say, for that, consider harvesting those multiple events, and you'll see more kernels collectively than you would have if there had been only one that day. What that does is it prevents people from scheduling 10 events in the day and everyone coming out with 1,000 kernels at the end of the day. So
okay.
If that makes sense, Carl.
Okay, so John, let me tell you what I heard from everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting a lot of kernels. That's all I heard. You know what?
Look, harvest more often.
Well,
I've been harvesting.
It's just there's it becomes a little bit of it becomes an incentive for people to host events, because you as a host end up, if your event breaks a certain threshold of attendees and harvesters, that ends up being better for you than if you were just an attendee. Because multiple people are harvesting or creating an event in the day, they have to understand that they're actually chipping into the harvests of other events.
John,
That's something that I
does
kind
that count for spaces alone? Like what? Like the Gilmore Girls space gets this many kernels. The Conjuring space gets
it's
this many kernels
it's everything. It's how many events that are in a day. That's it.
Oh my God.
from all spaces. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter
And so-
how many spaces we have.
Yeah, I mean, potentially by that system, like, you know, the platform could grow to a place where we've got like hundreds of events happening in a day, and each one of them like would be a trickle of kernels. That's
Carl, you
possible.
better get busy getting into.
That could
Yeah, Carl said Carl said he was
potentially happen. You know, obviously this is all, I'm just testing all this stuff. So, I mean, I'm going to adjust. I mean, but the big reason why I did that, where I split up the kernels in that way across events, is because we were having this thing where people were like, oh, Mary, you hosted an event. I don't want you to lose your streak. I'm going to create another event in order to keep you from losing your streak. I needed to create something that sort of was the counterbalance to that, right? Like now suddenly people are doing that to help people keep their streaks, but now everyone is earning like the same amount of kernels for that. I have to create something in the game that like pushes against that a little bit. Does that make sense?
It does.
You know what, John? It's okay. I understand that you like conflict and crying and fights, and you know that's what the kernel system gonna become. So we gonna see what happens.
We're like Lorelai, where he's like trying to mess us up.